We are live. Welcome, everybody, to A Mighty Blaze. My name is Mary Weber O'Malley, and I am your host today. I'm really excited about this interview. And before we get to it, I just want to remind everybody that A Mighty Blaze was founded in the early days of COVID to connect readers and authors. You can go to our website, and there you will find information on all of our weekly segments. While you are there, you can sign up for our newsletter. Our newsletter will come out and remind you of all of our upcoming interviews so that you make sure that you never miss one. Let's see. We are all volunteer organization. We have 8 different interview segments every week. And we'd love to see you here for any and all of those. Again, I'm Mary Weber O'Malley. I'm your host for today's Lit Fic interview with Adam Nimoy, the author of The Most Human, Reconciling with My Father, Leonard Nimoy. Adam is the author of this book and the director and producer of the documentary film For the Love of Spock, which came out in 2016. He attended the University Elementary School, a lab school run by UCLA, where he was subjected to numerous psychological experiments. The experimentation continued at UC Berkeley in the form of mind-altering substances. In a state of absolute certainty, Adam attended Loyola Law School. He was wrong. After 7 years of practicing entertainment law and one moment of clarity, Adam left his life as an attorney to follow his passion of making films. After directing 45 hours of network television, Adam's career plummeted due in large part to drug and alcohol addiction. On January 1st, 2004, Adam entered a 12-step recovery, hoping to achieve an attitude adjustment. This was a New Year's resolution he knew he had to keep. For 8 years, he taught writing, directing, and acting at the New York Film Academy and taught filmmaking at Beit Teshuvah, I don't know if I pronounced that right, an addiction treatment center where the residents kept him on the straight and narrow. And you can find out all about Adam online at adamnimoy.com. I am going to chat with Adam about his book a little bit, and then I'm going to open things up for viewer questions. So once again, I want to welcome everybody. If you have questions as we're going along talking about the book, please do put them in the chat box and we'll get to those later on in the interview. So Adam, welcome to A Mighty Blaze. We're so happy to have you here talking about your book, The Most Human. Can you tell us a little bit about this book and how it came to be?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on, Mary. It's a privilege to be here with you. I really appreciate it. The book came to be is sort of an offshoot of the film I made about my dad, the documentary For the Love of Spock in 2016.
Uh-oh, it looks like Adam may have frozen, or I did. Yeah, Adam, you froze on the screen. Everybody, please bear with us. Technical difficulties. So hang on here. Bear with us, please, folks. Looks like Adam is going out and he's going to come back in. So again, bear with us. Sorry for the technical difficulties. We will do our best. In the meantime, I'm going to take a quick drink. I see people signing in from Florida where it is very stormy and it's sunny in Idaho. Here in Chicago, we are just ramping up into quite a little heat wave and still dealing with cicadas. So it is the worst of everything summer here. But while we wait for Adam to sign back in, again, his book is The Most Human. And thank you, Robin, for being familiar with technical difficulties. Yeah, so Adam, and I'm sure he'll talk about this once he gets back on here, but both, Renee wants to know, what's a heat wave in Chicago? Because you're in Florida. I gotcha. It's going to be in the mid to upper 90s with high humidity for the next, I think tomorrow's a little cooler, and then going out through middle of next week. I think a day or two around 97. So that to me is anything over 95 is a real heat wave. I know in Florida, you guys have it worse and more at this time of year. And right now, I know you guys are underwater completely. So I hope you're all staying safe there. Everybody who's just joining right now, I see more people joining on Facebook. Sorry, we're having some technical difficulties. We're waiting for Adam to rejoin us, and hopefully he'll be rejoining us momentarily. So bear with us because we're just waiting for Adam to come back so we can talk about his book, The Most Human, Reconciling with My Father, Leonard Nimoy. I know Adam talks about parenting, about his own parenting. He talks about his relationship with his father through his father's alcoholism. And then Adam also had his own path through alcoholism and addiction. And he discusses how that came into play with his marriage, with his relationship with his children, rebuilding those relationships. So yes, hopefully he'll be back on soon and we can talk about all of that. I'm just, again, bear with me. Karen, I don't know if you have, I don't have easily accessible Adam's publicist information or day of information, but hopefully he's coming back quickly. And thank you everybody for your continued patience. Adam has been clean and sober since 2004. And he has spent a lot of that time working, teaching writing workshops, and working with residents at an alcohol treatment center. So yes, I would love to repeat that, Renee. Let me repeat Adam's bio while we're waiting for him hopefully to come back. I love the Mighty Blaze viewers. We are a very bright bunch. So I will be happy to do that. Adam Nimoy is the author of The Most Human, Reconciling with My Father, Leonard Nimoy, which came out on June 4th from the Chicago Review Press. He's also the director and producer of the documentary film For the Love of Spock, which came out in 2016. He had attended the University Elementary School, a lab school run by UCLA, where he was subjected to numerous psychological experiments. The experimentation continued at UC Berkeley in the form of mind-altering substances. In a state of absolute certainty, Adam made the decision to attend Loyola Law School. He was wrong. After 7 years of practicing entertainment law and one moment of clarity, Adam left his life as an attorney to follow his passion of making films. After directing 45 hours of network television, Adam's career... Oh, here's Adam coming back now.
Hi, am I back
Adam,
on?
welcome. Welcome back. Yes.
Okay, I'm so
Yes.
sorry,
Welcome
man.
back.
Oh, thank you. So sorry for the technical problem.
That's okay. As a virtual platform, we've had to get used to technical difficulties, whether it is computer issues or weather related issues. We're just glad you found your way back.
Thank you. So sorry.
That's all right. Let's start again with having you talk about your book, The Most Human.
Yes, what I was saying, Mary, was that I talked a little bit about my relationship with my dad in the film For the Love of Spock. But I'm in 12-step recovery, and I share that story quite often anonymously in the various meetings I go to, both AA and Al-Anon. Al-Anon is for people who have somebody in your family who has a drug or alcohol problem. And the story resonates with people about just how my dad and I were able to reconcile with one another using the tools of recovery. And it just seemed like we touched on it a little bit in the film, but it felt like I needed to do a deeper dive. I've been writing all my life, and I just felt like I needed to get this story out there once and for all about the miraculous reconciliation that I was able to, enjoy with my dad after many years of a lot of conflict with him.
Yes. And absolutely it's amazing what 12-step recovery can do for relationships. I am very familiar with it. My mom was in recovery, and we too were able to reconnect after many years of being estranged. So it's a beautiful thing. Um, can you talk about what it was like being the son of Leonard Nimoy, the son of Spock? How did that affect your childhood?
Well, it was a profound effect. Star Trek went on the air when I was 10 years old, um, and it changed our lives. Obviously, it was a pretty big hit right away, and people were reacting pretty positively to the character of Spock. We got a lot of fan mail at home. One of the fanzines, 16 Magazine, accidentally printed our home address as the mailing address for the fan mail. So we were getting sacks of mail, and we were answering it. This is one of our family activities, was answering his fan mail. My life with my dad was very complicated because of the fact that he was working a lot when I was very young and struggling as an actor and doing a lot of hustling, a lot of odd jobs on the side while he pursued his acting career. He's a guy who came from, his parents were Russian immigrants. They came from Ukraine. They considered themselves Russian. They were not that demonstrative with him. They were not that affectionate or loving. I knew them well. I loved them, but they were very reserved. My dad grew up in Boston during the Depression and had a hustle to make money to help support the family. And then came out to LA at age 18 to find his fortune. So right away, we had very different generational backgrounds. And we were I was born in sunny Southern California and had a very different lifestyle than my dad. And we had difficulty connecting when I was a kid with him. It was very awkward. So when he was pursuing his career, he wasn't around much, so there was not that much connection because he wasn't around. And then when Star Trek came, he was working very long hours on the set, so our lives became much more complicated at that point. Even though it was, we enjoyed it, we enjoyed his success. I was always proud of my dad, but it was very hard to relate to him.
What would you say, and we'll get into the darker sides too, but what was the biggest benefit to you as a child to being, having your dad be Spock? Or was it a benefit, or was that more of a detriment to you?
Well, it was a benefit. I mean, I had a lot of friends who we were all watching 60s TV. I mean, we all love Star Trek. So it was very not, I was very proud of my dad, and I was proud I used to carry pictures of him around in my notebook, like promotional pictures and publicity photos. I just love what he was doing. I was very proud of him. I don't, there was only one time where I made it known. I let it be known in a class of mine that I was Leonard Nimoy's son, and there was some pandemonium that ensued. And that's when I kind of decided, okay, I don't really need this kind of attention. I'm gonna keep a lower profile. And my sister is the same way. I mean, most of our lives, we don't even mention our last names if we don't have to. But you know, it's wonderful that when people, the impact my dad had on so many people. As a kid growing up, again, I was very proud of him, but it was very difficult being with him. And even when I was in public with him, he'd be mobbed for autographs. I mean, this tapered off as he got older, but back in the 60s and 70s, when I was, you know, preteen and then in my early teen years, we could not be in public together because people would line up at the dinner table for an autograph.
I can only imagine being, you know, around the same age when it came out. And as you know, when we were that age, our viewing options were much more limited. So I mean, Star Trek was new and exciting and different, and developed a huge fan base amongst myself, my brothers, our friends. So yes, I can only imagine my reaction if I saw Spock on the street and how I would have behaved myself. You talk about the difference in your childhood versus your dad's. I mean, that is a vast difference, I'm sure. And parenting patterns, especially when we have parents who are active in their addiction or alcoholism, you know, we seem to pass those patterns down. Were there patterns of parenting that, you know, your dad held on to with you that maybe he grew up with that weren't healthy? Were those exacerbated by his use?
Well, yeah, his use and my use. I mean, I was smoking marijuana from age 17 every day for the next 30 years. So we're both, you know, culpable in that respect. The problem really started, the real difficulty with him began when he was finished with Star Trek. He went into Mission Impossible for 2 seasons. And then when that was over, he had a little time on his hands. And just at the point when I was 16, 17 years old, and he started to pay more attention to me. And, you know, I was running around with a little bit of a rough crowd that he didn't appreciate. So there was a lot of head knocking at that point, where is when it really began. I mean, you know, the conflict that we had because we had no real emotional loving connection when I was younger. The conflict that ensued there after that, as I was growing up, I think was just made worse by his alcoholism and my substance abuse. And that went on for many years. I mean, he didn't go sober until the late 90s, and I didn't go sober until 2004. I'm just 20 years sober this year.
Congratulations on that. That's huge.
Thank you.
Very huge. So let's start with what changed. You know, he got sober, you eventually got sober, but sobriety itself isn't automatically going to heal a relationship. How did you two come back together?
Well, okay, yeah. Well, it's a very interesting question. And it is the basic subject matter of my book, but I want to talk about it a little bit. So what happened was, he went sober and he went to some meetings early on in his sobriety, but he was not really working a program in recovery. He was just not drinking anymore. And as you say, that doesn't, you know, nothing really changes except there's no alcohol in the mix. But basically, things remain the same. Then I went into my own recovery in 2004. And during that period, we had a very low point in our relationship. We were pretty much we were not talking to each other. And my dad's solution to the problem was to send me a 6-page letter outlining all of my character defects and why, you know, the dysfunction of our relationship was due in large part to my screw ups, my misstatements, my poor behavior, my missed opportunities. Even though he tried to help me, you know, in Hollywood, I screwed up that career and a lot of my shortcomings. It was a long list of my shortcomings, and it was a little upsetting that this was his solution to our problem. And in trying to practice the tools of recovery, I didn't react to it because, you know, negative engagement was the pattern between my dad and I. It's like, you know, it was great when he was doing well and he's, you know, all of his successes, all of which I was very proud of. and showed up for him to support him always. I mean, I was glad to do it, but sometimes I was doing it under very difficult circumstances because we were not talking to one another. So I just decided that I wasn't going to react to the letter and let it go and hope that we had a better relationship. But a friend of mine in recovery said, "No, this is perfect. You got to make an amends to him. It's steps 8 and 9." And he gave you all the reasons why you need to make an amends. You got to take the letter to your dad and say, "I'm sorry for everything in it." And don't expect an amends from him. And don't say the word but. Just apologize and move on with your life, because I had my own resentments towards my dad. And that was the pivotal moment. It was just a great opportunity. It was devastating when I got the letter, but my friend in recovery, who I talk about in the book, said, "No, this is great. Are you kidding? He's just giving you an opening here." So I did. I went and made this amends to my dad, and that's when things started to change.
That's incredible. To take something that has the potential, not just the potential, but that is so hurtful, and turn it into something positive is a wonderful way to break those cycles, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like I couldn't have done it on my own, Mary. I needed the direction to do it, and we fake it till we make it. It's like I made the amends, but I was not really 100% there. We try to take the action and hope that the feeling comes along for the rides at some point. And that is what happened. But the other thing I want to really emphasize is that my dad was also at that moment ready to give up and let go of his resentments towards me. Because when I walked out the door of his house after making the amends, he immediately invited me to Shabbat dinner the following Friday night. And everything changed after that. And it was as much of his willingness as it was of the action that I took. So, I mean, it was really a joint effort.
That's just an absolutely beautiful story of what's possible. What's possible in recovery. Absolutely. I love it. What would you say, how you talk a lot about your family, your children, your wife, and again, we when we're the child of a user, or an addict or alcoholic, and then we are one, those patterns that we repeat, how did you come to break those with your family?
Well, I mean, I just naturally did a lot of things different with my kids. I mean, I wasn't, I'm a lot like my dad, but I was not raised by him.
Uh-oh. Adam, you froze again. Maybe try and refresh. Otherwise, you might have to go out and come back in again, Adam. So sorry, everybody. I'm riveted with this conversation, and I feel like a TV series, like we've just left on a cliffhanger, a major cliffhanger that I can't wait to get back to. So hopefully, Adam, he's going out, he'll come back in, we'll continue our conversation. I see a lot of questions coming into the chat. I will ask Adam a few more questions here, and then we will open it up, and hopefully Adam can hang out a little bit longer with us so that we can get to everybody's questions. Let's see. I will go back to reading the second half of Adam's bio while we're waiting. So, after directing 45 hours of network television, Adam's career plummeted due in large part to his drug and alcohol addiction. On January 1st, 2004, Adam entered 12-step recovery, hoping to achieve an attitude adjustment. This was a New Year's resolution he knew he had to keep. For 8 years, he taught writing and directing and acting at the New York Film Academy and taught filmmaking at Beit Teshuvah, an addiction treatment center where the residents kept him on the straight and narrow. And Adam's website is adamnimoy.com. You can find all kinds of information about Adam there. Prior to, I'm just going to throw this out there for anybody tuning in from Chicago. Prior to the interview, we were talking about Chicago's Printers Row Lit Fest, our book festival, which is so much fun. And because Adam's publisher is the Chicago Review Press, he's going to see if he can come to Printers Row. And wouldn't that be exciting? Meanwhile, we have The Most Human. I am going to ask Adam if he has a bookstore, a local bookstore where maybe you could find signed or personalized copies, but you can certainly find copies at bookshop.org in the A Mighty Blaze stall. And by purchasing through the A Mighty Blaze stall, you are helping us bring you more interviews like this. And Renee, the Printers Row Lit Fest is usually, I think it's the weekend after Labor Day in Chicago. So it's like the September 7th, 8th, 9th, or 8th, 9th, 10th, something like that. Lots of fun. Downtown Chicago, just beautiful, beautiful festival with great panels and author events. You can go to Printers Row. I think if you look up Printers Row Lit Fest on Facebook or Instagram, they've got social media pages with all the information there. And again, bookshop.org, the A Mighty Blaze stall will have copies. You can order this. For those of you tuning in who don't know about bookshop.org, it is the indie bookstore answer to the big A. Here at A Mighty Blaze and in my work as a bookseller for Skylark Bookshop, of course, we want readers to support indie bookstores. And you can do that through bookshop.org, which gives you discounts on a lot of books. Pretty quick shipping. They run sales and great deals as well. Thank you to our producer who is putting up the Printers Row information for everybody watching. Also, I'm going to give a plug for audiobook listeners. If you listen to audiobooks and you listen on the big A, I would love to ask you to check out Libro.fm. It's not fm.com. It's just Libro, Libro.fm. I'm sure our producer, Karen, will put that in the chat as well. Libro is the indie answer to the big A. They are a social purpose company, and that means they put social causes above profits. It costs the same for a subscription as that other service. Your credits never expire, and you can listen across devices. Once you purchase an audiobook, it's yours to keep forever and ever. Unlike that other subscription service, which if you cancel, they take all your audiobooks back. With Libro, once you've purchased it, it's yours. So Libro.fm is a wonderful, they're celebrating their 10th anniversary. For subscribers, they have a bunch of buy one, get one free on audiobooks. You also get audiobook recommendations from booksellers like myself, not an algorithm. They have playlists for road trips. They have playlists for family road trips if you want something the whole family can enjoy listening to. They are a wonderful organization, so check them out. And I'm super hopeful we get Adam back here. And like I said, if we get him back, I'm just going to ask him a couple of more questions so that we have time to get back to or to get to your viewer questions as well. I know I've seen a lot of those come through. So we're hopeful that we are going to see Adam back here momentarily. Meanwhile, I'm going to take another sip of my bubbly water. It's a bubbly water kind of day here. And all right, so I saw Idaho and Florida tuning in. Where else do we have people tuning in from? Feel free to put it in the comments. Oh, has Adam written any other books? I do not believe there are any other books. This is his first one. And as he talked about, he directed the short film Son of Spock, I think it was called, For the Love of Spock, the documentary film. Here he is. He's back. Welcome back, Adam.
Mary, I'm so sorry. I don't know what the issue is.
I don't know either, but we're just thrilled that you were able to make it back in.
Okay. Yeah, I keep getting kicked off. Should we pick up where we left off? What do you want to do?
Let's see. We were talking about you and your family. Why don't we pick up there? And then I said I'd ask just a few more questions, and then we'd get to some of the viewer questions, if that's okay.
That'd be wonderful. Yeah, I wanted to mention that although I parented my kids, I had 2 kids during this period, Maddie and Jonah, who are now 34 and 32. But they were even when they were younger. I mean, I had a very different relationship with them. I had much more balance in my life between my career and raising my kids that my dad didn't have. And it's not to blame him at all or judge him. It's just that was not how he was built, and he had very different circumstances. He was pretty desperate to try to succeed and support the family. I wasn't in such dire straits as he was. But even though I had more connection to my kids, I still made my own mistakes, and they still found plenty of reasons to be really pissed off at me. Particularly because during this period of time, I had separated from their mother. I got divorced from an 18-year marriage, which was very hard on the kids. And I moved out of the house that we had together. It was a really lovely, living situation, but the marriage was long over, and I was just smoking pot all the time. And the kids were starting to get aware that there was something wrong with me, and that's when I decided to make it. It all happened at the same time. So, even though I did things very different with my kids, we all still make the same mistake, or our own mistakes, really. And our kids, no matter what, will find reasons to get angry. So that's how that went down at any rate.
Agree 100% on all counts. We all have our own mistakes to make, right? Even when we go into it with the thought that I'm going to do things differently, and as a young parent, I'm going to do things right.
Yeah.
Yep. I know how that goes. Can you speak to a couple of the life lessons that you learned from your relationship with your father?
Well, yeah. I mean, the bottom line is as soon as I learned, here's the deal. With recovery, and what I was told was, and I think this is so true, is that a lot of things happened with my dad that were very unfortunate, and I had my own resentments, and I know what happened, and I had held on a lot of that all my life. But as soon as I stopped needing to prove to him that he was wrong about things got a lot better for us. It's a lot about just patience, tolerance, acceptance. It's very simple, really. I mean, it sounds simple, and it's difficult to do sometimes I know my dad made mistakes. I have the list. It's in my hard drive. I lived it with him, But if you want to be happy, sometimes you just have to let go of that stuff and move along. I mean, I have to set boundaries with him. I don't want to keep getting in the same cycle of problems with him, which is okay too. I mean, I just had to grow up on my own and figure out how to set boundaries, which is a lot of what recovery is about. But once I gave up on having to prove to him who was right and who was wrong in any given situation, then things really turned around for us. And it gave my dad the opportunity to be the dad that I needed him to be, because during this period, my second wife, Martha, got very sick. I mean, I was divorced in 2006, and I got married in 2011, and she was almost immediately diagnosed with cancer. And it was that, I reconciled with my dad in 2006. So we were very close by then. And he became my go-to guy. But then again, his priorities had also changed because he was semi-retired and focused on family. So, a lot of it is just forgiveness and being patient with people and tolerant and accepting. Even though I accepted my dad for who he was, it does not mean I approved of everything that happened. There's a big difference between acceptance and approval. I did not. There were things that happened that I think, were very unfortunate. And I do outline some of it in the book. I am honest about some of it. But
Yeah.
the fact is that I had my own growing up to do, and that was really to let go of trying to prove to him. I was never going to prove to Leonard that he was wrong about stuff. I mean, he's a tough kid from Boston, and he was really difficult to take on. It was just a matter of figuring out how to love him and accept him.
Yeah, that's amazing. Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?
That
One
is
of the
it. Bottom line. That
one
is
of
it.
the things we learn in the rooms, right?
Yep.
Is there anything in your book that you think would have been a surprise to your dad?
Uh, yeah, it would all be a surprise. Uh, sometimes things would come up about past events. We try not to look back at the past, but he would say, "Wait a minute, did I say that? I didn't say that." Yeah, Dad, I've got the email. You said that, so that would be a little surprising to him. I think maybe it might be. I don't. It's hard. I think the impact that he had on me, my desire to connect with him, I think would really be something that would be more impactful now that he would be able to see that and accept that. And he did, when he was older and calming down and letting go of trying to be in Hollywood and competing and working. I think he would have appreciated more the whole story of my attempts to connect with him and the misfires that we had. I think he might that would be something new that he would learn. Also, just the fact that my feelings of awe for him. I think are very clear in the book from the get go. I
Awesome.
mean, I was very proud of the work he was doing with my little friend here.
I love it.
I was a really big fan of Star Trek and of Mr. Spock, and I just adored Spock. Loving my dad was much more complicated. I think that's a message that he would appreciate and really have a much more deeper understanding of in later life than he really did when we were living it.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the number one thing you would like readers to take away from your book, The Most Human?
It's not too late. And people should repair family relationships. Most everybody has some dysfunctional problem in the family. I mean, I hear this all the time when I share this at the meetings. People come
Mhm.
up to me all the time and they say that they're inspired, to connect with their parent or a sibling. It's
Mhm.
not too late. That's number one. And number two, you don't have to be an addict or an alcoholic to be in recovery. Recovery are simply tools to grow and to deal with life and to and just to deal with very difficult situations. I mean, I had no clue what to do with my dad. It was impossible, and
Yeah.
I just detached with love from him as of Al-Anon. I didn't know
Yeah.
what to do with him until
Mhm.
my friend said, "This is what you do. You practice the principles: contrary action, restrain of pen and tongue, let go and let God." All these mantras in the rooms, they're for real. And the real key for me has been, and I think people will hopefully will appreciate this, is you don't need to react immediately to some negative input or
Mhm.
energy coming your way. A lot of times
Mhm.
it's not personal. A lot of times my dad would come at me and I knew it was because he was miserable about something else.
Yeah.
But he would start because he think, because I'm close to him. I was there, so I would sometimes become a target.
You're the
It,
target.
yeah, I mean, the key is not to react to this stuff. Count to
Mhm.
10, count to 20, restrain
Pause.
on all those things, or just wait and let things settle down and then figure out what the best plan of action is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. I love that that's your takeaways, or that's what you want us to take away. Uh, do you have a local bookstore? And my question is there, if somebody wanted a signed copy of your book, is there anywhere that they might obtain that?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's signed copies at the Village Well in Culver City. If you're in LA, yeah, they're
Okay.
there. There are
Okay.
signed copies at Barnes and Noble Upper West Side in Manhattan. There are signed
Fabulous.
copies at Powell's Books in Portland. I just came from those three, cities over the past 2 weeks. I did a quick, in-store event tour, and they're there. Or go to my website and contact me through my website, and we'll figure out a way to get your listeners a signed copy. It's really that simple.
I love it. Love it. That's perfect. And my last question before we open it up to viewers is, what are you reading or what have you read recently that you found compelling?
Oh, okay, that's easy. I'm a little late to the game on this, but there's Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me. I just read because it's a letter. It's a letter to his son. It's memoir, and
Mhm.
it's a real interesting look at the Black experience in America, and it's devastating. It's devastating. It's so beautiful. It's so heartfelt. It's a father trying to really reach out to his son and help his son understand, the world as he understands it. I that right now that's like a model of aspiration for me. I mean, I can never. It's just I really appreciate the honesty, and that's what I try to accomplish in this book. It's like the more vulnerable you are, the more specific you are about your human experience on this planet, the more it seems to resonate with people. I mean,
Mhm.
I don't have a similar experience that they went through, the father and son experience, but I can relate just to the heartbreak of dealing with the challenges of being here, and that's my number one at the moment.
I find that books find us when we're meant to read them. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm also big.
Oh no, Adam, you froze again. Darn it. I thought maybe we're just getting to viewer questions. So if everybody can just please be patient one more time. We seem to get through about, 15 minutes before things shut down again. So hopefully Adam will be able to jump right back in, and then we're going to jump right into your questions and get through as many as we can. So I saw that, or I heard Adam say that Powell's in Oregon has signed copies of his book, and the Village something in LA. But if you want a personalized copy, then you can reach out to Adam on his website. And as he said, he will figure out a way to make that happen. So thrilled to have that option for all of you. I don't know about all of you watching, but I have just loved this conversation with Adam. Um, what was it, about 3 weeks ago? I had the honor of interviewing Anne Lamott, and we talked about parenting and addiction and alcoholism and all those things as well. That interview, as well as all of the Mighty Blaze interviews, can be found on our YouTube channel. They live there forever. We also have a podcast that features past interviews, but they aren't all on there. They are all on our YouTube channel. I know one interview coming up next week that I am really excited about is on Tuesday with Thoughtful Bro. And I believe it's at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. And Mark Cecil, who is our Thoughtful Bro host, is going to be interviewing Derek Black. Derek Black was raised to take over the throne of the white nationalist movement. His godfather was David Duke. Derek and his father founded Stormfront, which was is the website for white nationalists to convene and plot and plan. And Derek was all set to take this over, and he decided to attend college at a small liberal Florida school. And while attending there, befriended a group of students from all walks of life that continuously challenged Derek's beliefs. And Derek, he was brought up that these were truths, that these things were truths. And they consistently challenged him. And eventually he changed his thinking, was just going to quietly walk away from the white nationalist movement, but Allison, who was one of the friends that continuously challenged Derek, said, you know what, your words have caused people to die. You can't just step away. You need to publicly renounce these beliefs. And so Derek he sent a letter to I believe the Southern Poverty Law Center, renouncing white nationalism, coming around, talking about how he was going to study actual history. And after that, he attended school at University of Chicago and just wanted to live life quietly until Donald Trump decided to run for president the first time. And all of his rhetoric was so familiar to Derek because all of his words were what the white national movement was teaching as an alternative way to talk, so that they didn't come out to be the racist, horrific humans that they are. Anyway, a book came out shortly thereafter called Rising Out of Hatred. That was by Eli Saslow, who is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. So that came out maybe 6 years ago, Rising Out of Hatred, by Eli Saslow. And now that Trump is back like a terrible, worse than bad penny, like Pennywise, the evil clown, Derek decided that he needed to put his story back out into the world, but in his own words. So he wrote The Klansman's Son, and that came out last month. And Mark will be talking to Derek about that book. And that is an interview that is not to be missed. I will certainly be tuning into that. I can't wait to hear Mark and Derek have a conversation about that book and about all of the things that went into why Derek decided that they needed to write that book in their own words. So that will be this coming Tuesday at 2 Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. I know there's tons of other great interviews that are coming up with the Mighty Blaze. Hank Philippi Ryan, oh my gosh, her Crime Time interviews. She gets all of the top thriller authors. I think she just interviewed, or she's about to, Ruth Ware. She gets everybody. So, and Ellen Commissar has been interviewing debut authors, and phenomenal authors. So she's got some great stuff coming up. I think earlier today she was on with the author of the Uptown Local. I can't think of his name, but he wrote about his time as personal assistant to Joan Didion. So, Ruth. Yep. Ruth was on just this past Tuesday. So again, you can catch all of those interviews on our YouTube channel. Super hopeful that Adam can pop back on so he can get to a few of your questions here. Thank you all for your continued patience. And let's see. Yeah, we'll give him a couple more minutes. Thank you, Renee. And thank you, everybody who's hanging in there and hanging out with us. Yes. Corey Ledbetter. I think that's how you pronounce it. Uptown Local. And that was a memoir just about not just his time working for Joan Didion. I just finished listening to it on Libro. Phenomenal audiobook. But about his journey, his childhood, his father was in prison. Just really, really well done. Really well done. The other debut author that Ellen had on that I also listened to the audio of was Whale Fall. Not the Whale Fall that came out a year ago. That Whale Fall was fiction about a man who actually gets swallowed by a whale. And I loved that Whale Fall. This other Whale Fall is about a coming of age story of a young woman living on a sparsely populated Welsh island, and it's just a stunningly beautiful audiobook. Renee asked if I listen to books often or do I read. So I prefer a printed book, Renee. I always prefer a printed book. But I always have an audio book going at the same time. I can't read two books at once, but I can listen to one and read one at the same time. So for my walks through the neighborhood, or when I'm doing yard work or I'm doing housework, I love to have an audiobook going. I recently had to break down and get an e-reader because I am blessed and so grateful that publishers send me very early copies of books. So right now I'm reading books that are coming out in 2025. And usually what I get from a publisher is a galley. So this is an early copy of a book that they send to booksellers, librarians, influencers. And so this is called a galley or an ARC, an advanced reader copy. But publishers will send me bound manuscripts, and sometimes they send me unbound manuscripts. Down on my dining room table, I just have a stack of paper with a rubber band that came through last week of a book that that's coming out next year that they wanted me to read a very early copy of. But now I'm getting copies where they haven't even printed. So I got an e-reader. I got a Kobo. My daughter, who's a huge influencer in the romance genre, romantically inclined reviews. If you like romance, follow Romantically Inclined. She talked me through what e-reader to get. So I got a Kobo. And so now I have a book going on the Kobo, and I have a printed book and an audio book going generally at the same time. And that way I can kind of keep them straight. I don't feel like I'm getting confused between the books that I'm listening to. Printed copies are still my favorite. I can't get the same feel from an e-reader. And maybe that's because I'm not reading it in book format, but I'm reading it in PDF or Word doc format. But I still don't feel the same way. I just read a really early copy. It's called The Other March Sisters, and it comes out next year. And it is kind of a retelling of Little Women, but Jo is kind of left out of it because she's already written the story. It is the story of the sisters, but kind of if they told it in their own words, and it's got some feminist spin to it that I really enjoyed. So that's coming out next year. We're going to give Adam just a couple of more minutes. I'll give him two more minutes to see if he can jump back on. He may be having bigger computer problems. I'm just reading Robin's comment. I like that. Okay. Yep. Books as friends. I like that, Robin. That's wonderful. And what a great way to differentiate. I'm going to give that a try. Yes, Wade. Oh, yes, you're right, Renee. That was a beautiful, beautiful book. Yes, Viola Shipman writes beautiful books, but I loved Wade's memoir about his relationship with his dad. It was incredibly powerful. I do love memoirs. I shift between genres. I am definitely a mood reader. So I love thriller. I love horror. I love romance. I love memoir. I love literary fiction. And I love, I don't know what, just general fiction. So little bit of history, not a huge amount, dabble in a little fantasy here and there. I can't say I dislike sci-fi. I'm just not really drawn to it. So Magic Season. Thank you, Karen, our producer. She's on it. Yes, Magic Season by Wade Rouse was a wonderful, wonderful book. Well, Karen, I think maybe we can email them and say that we're gonna end the interview. I'm so sorry we didn't get. I know some of the questions that came through the chat we absolutely got to in my conversation with Adam. And so for those of you who wrote, I would have loved to have heard more about the religious. I think he, some of that may be touched on in here. Some of the other questions that you had may be touched on in the book. So I recommend that you pick up a copy of The Most Human: Reconciling with My Father by Adam Nimoy. It's yes, we did get to quite a few questions, so I'm thrilled for that. Sorry we didn't get to the others. Thank you to everybody for joining me. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Thank you for hanging in there. Anybody who's just joined recently, we had some technical difficulties with Adam Nimoy, and so he kind of went out and came back in a few times. You can catch the recap on A Mighty Blaze's YouTube channel. You can catch all of our interviews there. In the meantime, thank you so much for joining. Please do get yourself a copy of Adam's book. Again, you can go to his website if you'd like to look into getting a personalized copy. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. To show support for A Mighty Blaze, go to our website, subscribe to our newsletter, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and like and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you again for joining me today. I'm Mary Weber O'Malley for A Mighty Blaze, and hope to see you back here soon for our next round of interviews.